Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Halloween Countdown. Oh, that never gets old. And today, we've got a double feature. Vincent Price, Vincent Price, Vincent Price! Oh my gosh, you guys, excuse me while I fangirl for a second. I freaking love Vincent Price. He was probably, let's see here. No, he actually is one of the biggest influences for me for horror, one of the first influences, even way before Edgar Allan Poe. Like, he read the first reading I ever heard of Pit and the Pendulum. If you watched my Transformers review, I said that the two movies as a little kid that I would constantly get from the rental store was Transformers and Muppets. And the Muppets one was always the Halloween special that had him and Alice Cooper. And I can't even begin to describe like how much of an influence this guy's voice has been on my cartoon villains growing up. He was the bad guy in The Mouse Detective, which it doesn't matter if it's a bad movie. It's kind of like Tim Curry. It doesn't matter if it's a bad movie or a good movie. He is always awesome in it. And today we are looking at one of his more famous flicks, and also his 100th. The Abominable Dr. Phibes. And the sequel, Dr. Phibes Rises Again. So, this was a very weird set of movies. I heard about these movies years and years ago, and I was really excited to find them at a convention, and I wasn't really sure what I was expecting. Like, I only knew the basic story, where Dr. Phibes is this evil genius and also music composer that wants to take revenge on all the people situated with his wife's death by using the curses of ancient Egypt, curse of locusts, curse of bats, curse of frogs, etc., so forth. There's a long list. There's 10 in all. And I was hearing how great it was. That said, part of the reason I decided to watch the second one is because the first one was okay. Yeah, it hurts. That hurts to say. So, my biggest issue with the movie has to do with the performance, or rather the lack of performance, from Vincent Price. The reason Vincent Price is so entertaining to me is because he is such a character, and it doesn't matter if he is an evil villain, or if he's a good guy, or if it's comedy or horror. He has so much fun in the parts he has, and he has this laugh and this smile and just these mannerisms that make it a treat to watch him work. Unfortunately, in the first movie at least, we don't really get to see a lot of that. In the costume that he has, he can't move his mouth. And he also can't talk. There's a few he can talk through like a special machine, but we're just hearing his voice. And he speaks very little. The amount that he does speak, it's usually the same couple of lines over and over again. There is one great part at the end where he's kind of monologuing, and it's really nice. And I use the term nice. I shouldn't be using the term nice. I should be using creepy or enthralling or, I don't know, not nice. The second movie, on the other hand, is a huge step up from the first, and I'll get to it in a second. So, the first movie, he is killing all these people in various ways, and they're very clever ways too. Like, for instance, the Curse of Frogs doesn't actually involve live frogs, though there is a lot of other live animals hurting people and killing people in these movies. That's kind of one of the main things I think was so big about this movie, was the gore feature along with the very unusual tone. See, in between the different murders, we also get a series of... We also get the detectives that are looking for Phibes and trying to protect the different future victims, and failing miserably at it. And their scenes are filled with these really weird, almost slapstick jokes. There's this running gag for the main detective. His name is Trout, and people keep calling him a different fish name. Detective Carp, Detective Salmon. He's like, no, it's Trout. And it's not really that funny. It feels like a lot of the jokes in these scenes, someone wrote down and said, okay, that's funny, but they didn't bother to ask, how can we make this even more funny? It's just they're so small, they almost seem out of place. And then the other scenes we get in between the detectives and the murder is the scenes with Phibes and his assistant just hanging out in their hideout, listening to jazzy club music, playing the organ. The assistant is usually dancing in really pretty outfits. There's a lot of fashion and Art Deco in this. And though the ending was really good, the rest of it felt like nothing really fit together. The murders and the parts with the detectives bumbling around and the musical scenes in the hideout, they all feel like they're from 3 different movies. Or they had 3 different writers working on it. Which I really hate to say, because it's Vincent Price. They also had clockwork musicians. So a little bit of steampunk in there for you, or clockwork punk. I don't know what you would call it, but it was just... It just didn't run together as smoothly as I wished it did. It also doesn't help that in the first one there was a lot of talking. And I don't just mean jokes, I mean a lot of talking. And really, this is actually making me think of The Invisible Man again, because in The Invisible Man, I was saying that we should have had less of the talking and more of the Invisible Man. In here, it feels like that again, where we needed less of the talking and more of Vincent Price and the murders and the evil plan and even more, maybe even more of the dancing in the hideout, because those were actually pretty fun scenes. So, okay, that's all I've got to say about the first one. Really kind of left me unsatisfied. Luckily, I have the sequel. So, this one here, already you can tell it breathes better. It lets Vincent Price actually emote. He smiles, he does some funny jokes. He's included in jokes, which is one thing that was missing from the other movie as well. The first scene we see of him is when he rises from where he was sleeping, gets up to this big organ that's quite centerpiece in the movies, and he's about to start playing, and he pauses, and he does this very kind of comical, exaggerated crack of the knuckles, and wiggles his fingers and smiles, and then he starts to play, and already that feels so much better to me than the version of Dr. Phibes that we saw in the first one. And then there's several scenes throughout the movie where it just feels stronger because we get a bigger sense of his personality. In the first one, his personality went to the extent of, I want to take revenge on these people for the death of my wife. That really seemed like his only character thing. Other than, being able to play music. And apparently being really smart. This one, however, we get to see him in action a lot more. True, it's not as many deaths, but they are quite entertaining, and again, the weird humor is there, but this time it feels like it fits better because it's included with the other things in this movie. There's a scene in the movie where Phibes is doing something horrific, and nearby the characters are just having a nice chat, completely unaware of what's happening right outside of where they're sleeping. And their jokes feel funny because of Phibes being, like, really just outside of their tent. And the other thing is that Phibes is indeed the villain, but he's also the protagonist of the movie. He is the character that we are following and even rooting for a lot of times, especially in the second one. So, now that I've just gotten out all my thoughts about the movie, I want to talk about the look, because that was one of the most entertaining things as well, was that Art Deco, and also the jazzy music, and the clockwork orchestra. It was just so weird and yet so wonderful at the same time, and so cool. And the clockwork orchestra was really just guys dressed up as robots, pretending to play music. And then there's the assistant, who is also apparently a robot. It's never said in the movie, but it's meant to be implied. And she has an outfit for, like, every scene, pretty much. I can definitely see how this movie got so popular, because Phibes is a very, very interesting villain. And as it turns out, it also has a remake or sequel or something in the works. There are also several books that the original director has put out. So, heck yeah, I'm checking those out. So, an example of the very out-of-place humor between all of the different deaths and stuff, and during the investigation, in one case, the detective is talking to one of the people that they need to protect because he's on the death list of Dr. Phibes, sorry. And the detective and his partner open up the door. They're in a gentleman's club. They open up the door to the outside. A bust of a unicorn flies through the door and stabs the guy through the chest into a wall. And because it is a spiral horn unicorn bust, they have to twist him around like a screw to get him out. So we have this really odd scene of these two detectives. It's behind like this screen door or something, and we see this guy inside the club, and he's reading the paper, and every so often we see the feet of the guy rotating all out the just right out the corner of the wall. We just see his feet for a moment as they turn him around and around. We see it like 2 or 3 times. And then we get back to whatever else was happening in the plot. It's very strange. It's also one of those movies where really things happen for the sake of the plot. There is a lot of very silly things that happen in this movie. A lot of dumb decisions made by characters, Phibes included. Mainly by the police, who don't know how to do their job to save a life. Quite literally. In fact, come to think of it, they're pretty much side characters in this film. Phibes is the main character, and then there's a few other main characters, which I guess would be all the victims, and then the Detective Trout and the other police guys are just side characters. They never manage to find Phibes. They always just luck out. I don't even know if Phibes and Trout, I don't think they even met in the movie. I don't think they actually met face to face. There was no big standoff between Phibes and the policeman. There is a standoff, but between one of the victims and Phibes. It's such a weird set of movies. And though I wasn't too big on the first, the second one I did enjoy. It had more of just this... I think with the second one, they kind of figured out what they wanted to do. They figured out how the humor should be, the level of humor, the level of gore, and they went with it. They maxed it out to 11. Because at the very end of these movies, you get kind of this kind of really nice satisfaction that Phibes has done what he's set out to do. Now, he does end up achieving goals, but it's never really told us if he does succeed or not. It's kept very vague, and I think that's one of the reasons I like it. Oh, and both the movies end with Over the Rainbow. Such a weird set of movies. Okay, everyone, that was my review of The Abominable Dr. Phibes and Dr. Phibes Rises Again. Such a weird movie. I am still getting the books. Alright, remember to like, fave, subscribe, all that jazz. And I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.